Hello everybody, this is Cheri, djsundry.blogspot.com, and tonight I am going to make and assemble a card with you, and I have not made one of the Slimline cards. It's kind of all the rage right now, and so I thought I'm going to try this. It looks really fun and I like the way that it looks, so let's pull out some supplies and so let's use it. So I pulled out this flower stencil from Tim Holtz. It is stencil THS077, and what I noticed is it is a little bit too small to do the whole length of the card. So a slimline card on the outside is 3.5 by 8.5. And so a piece of paper running this way is 8.5. So I thought, well, this is a little bit smaller than the stencil because the size of this is, probably, okay, let's pull it over here, which is kind of getting off camera, but the actual body of the stencil is going to be more like 7 inches tall. So I'm short about 1 inch from where I want it to be, because for this panel I'm going to want it to be about 8 inches. So I thought, well, I think I can stretch this and make it work. So let's try it and see. So I've got my workstation here, my Make Art station, because I want to be able to hold that down really well. And I've chosen 3 distress inks. Now I have chosen Crackling Campfire, the new color from Tim Holtz. I have some Pilled Paint and some Seedless Preserves. So I am going to start with doing the Seedless Preserves because I want to get all of my vines out of the out of the Pilled Paint, because I want to do my vines with the Pilled Paint. So I'm just going in and grabbing my stencil. Now I am not being too particular. If I happen to get a little bit into a flower, it doesn't bother me. Also, if I happen to later when I'm doing other colors, that won't bother me either. The other thing is if I happen to get a little bit lighter in some places and a little bit darker in some places, that's perfectly fine, because I am it'll give me a good variation of my stenciling. Now I definitely don't consider myself a stencil expert. I've been doing more of it, not in things that you have seen yet, but some of the things that I have been playing with and experimenting with, and I am really enjoying using them. And I found that it definitely makes a difference to have the right tools, and that's why this Make Art station is so great. So you can see it didn't take me that long to put that Pilled Paint on there. Now I'm going to go in with my Crackling Campfire. And so this Crackling Campfire is a beautiful orange. It really depends on what you pair it with, on the colors that you'll see the most out of it. Sometimes, and how rich you blend. It does pick up some red undertones, but it also picks up yellow undertones. So it's just a beautiful color, and I especially think it's pretty for fall, which this card that I am making today is definitely going to have a fall feel. Now you'll notice that when I was rubbing that, some of those probably went over those green leaves. I don't care. It's not going to take away from my overall project. Sometimes I get a little bit heavier handed in certain areas, and that's kind of intentional too, because I love to have that variation. And then I'm using the Seedless Preserves to go into more the middle of the flowers, and then I also am going to go back and pick up some of these smaller flowers like I have right there and add a little bit of that purple Seedless Preserve color. Again, great fall colors for different fall projects. So again, not being real particular, I'm definitely merging some of my colors a little bit, and I'm okay with that for the overall look. So you see I've filled the whole thing, and now we are going to make an adjustment, because I still need another inch at the top. So I've just raised, isn't that pretty? So I just raised my stencil up, kind of shifted my paper down, and I decided this area right here was the easiest area to kind of move. Now, these are not going to match up perfectly. It's not my intent to match them up perfectly. I am, however, trying to get them to where I kind of get my biggest flowers, I'll be able to have a good spot of those, and then I am trying to match up the sides a little bit. So when I have it about where I want it, then I go ahead and adhere it down. Now I'm not working down here. I'm just going to be working at the top because that is where the flowers are that still need to be colored. So then I'm going back in and I'm doing the whole process again. Now, yes, there will be some overlap, and I'm really okay with that. You'll see when we're done that it does not detract from it to have that overlap. Now, if there's a major overlap space, I tend to kind of leave that empty. So, but if there's a little bit of overlap, like between a partial flower petal or a vine or something, I'm okay with that. I just leave, I let it go ahead and overlap, and I'm okay with that. So the other thing, if there's some overlap with the leaves on the bottom, I found that I kind of like the overlap, the layers on top of each other. They look kind of pretty when we're all done. So again, I'm not moving too far down, so there won't be a lot of overlap, just some at the top that you'll see a little bit of overlap. Again, going in, catching those centers with the seedless preserves. These brushes are new to me, and I'm really liking them. I think for some things they are a little bit easier to work with than the blending foams, although the blending foams definitely have their place. It's just for this type of project this works better. So now I can go back in and clean off my stencil, but for now I'm just going to set it aside. You see I've got kind of a tangle up here. Now this one was kind of an unintentional overlap, probably not one I would have preferred. It'll still work out fine with my card, but there we have a stencil that covers the whole area. So I'm going to set that aside because I've already done this is the second one of these that I've made, and I've already cut my other ones. But just so you know what I'm going to do with this for the card when it comes time to use the card, I am going to cut it down to 3 inches by 8 inches. So there'll be about 1 inch of the overhang up at the top, and there's about 1/4 inch of the side is all. But I'll just toss those in my scrap bin. So now we are going to move to the rest of the card. So I've already cut my panels here, and I've cut my card. Now this is a piece of paper tray ink cardstock, craft colored cardstock that I have, and this is a really nice heavy duty card. And so I have cut that, and this is the 3.5 by the 8.5. And then I took a piece of just plain white cardstock, and I cut that down to 3 1/8 by 8. I mean 3 1/4 by 8 1/4. And then I took the crackling campfire and I went around the edges. Now you'll see that I've got this big blank spot in the middle. That's fine because I am not going to be, it will be completely covered. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that down. And that was just simple blending. I tried really hard to pick up, I wanted that the edge right at the edge to have a deeper color. So the smearing in here was because I was working so hard to get this darker edge, because I really did want the darker edge on the outside. So I'm going to just kind of move this towards me a little bit so I can see it. If I get off camera, I apologize, but I want to be able to make sure that I have it as straight as possible, because there's only about 1/8 of an inch to wiggle with all the way around, and I want to get it as straight as I can. So there we have our first piece. So then you see the panel that I've already cut, and I really debated against this because I thought, well, I could go this way, or I could turn the card this way, and then that gives me lots of real estate to write my message on the inside, because this is actually a card for a friend. But I think I am going to leave it this way. The other thing that I looked at was going this way. With this stencil, it can go any of the ways that I choose, but I think that I have decided I like it this way. It looks like that branch of flowers right here is just kind of laying on its side near the opening. So I do want to make sure that I get plenty of adhesive to adhere against the whole length of the card. I tend to kind of go a little bit heavy on adhesive anyway. I just want my cards to hold up in the mail. So there we have our panel of our card. Isn't that pretty? Those colors just kind of really pop in there. So now we are going to finish off the card. I'm going to show you what I used here. I pulled this really old stamp set. This is from Close to My Heart, circa about 2017, I think. This is a Stamp and Cut, and what you can see that it has different layers of the flowers, so that you start with this layer, you go to this layer, and then you go to this layer with the different colors, so that you get that dimensional look, and I really like that. So I pulled out Crackling Campfire, but then I also pulled out for the darkest color Fired Brick, and then for the lightest color I pulled out Ripe Persimmons. Now this particular set also has a die cut, so I was able to cut my pieces, and after I stamped them, and I pre-stamped them, and I have them right here in front of us. And so I stamped all three because I wasn't sure what I was going to want to do. And then it also had leaves, which I stamped also in peeled paint. Now one of them I went over the top of it with some forest moss. I'm not even sure which one it was because you can't really tell. Now you'll notice on this one that I kind of got off with the die cutting, so I may not even end up using that one. We're just going to see how we can do it. And then I brought in, also it had these sentiments in it. Now I will tell you that my and Friend here, even though it shows, you can't really see that well, but even though it shows two different stamps here, they were actually joined together, so I cut those apart. And then Beautiful and You were actually joined together, so I cut those apart because I didn't want You and I wanted to break up my Friend. So what I did is I took some Versamark ink and I stamped Beautiful with a Versamark ink, and then I took the Crackling Campfire Distress Glaze. Now this is the first time I've used this glaze, and I have to tell you I was a little bit worried that how delicate the Beautiful was. I expected it to be a little bit bulky, but it wasn't. It's a beautiful embossed look. So I stamped that with a Versamark ink onto my craft colored cardstock, and then my Beautiful Friend I just did in regular archival black ink. So you'll notice, if you think back to our original panel, if I was using the original panel here, that overlap piece that I didn't really like wouldn't even, you would cover it right up. So it works out just fine. But I'm going to put this here, and I haven't decided yet if I'm going to pop it up or not, because actually I'm going to play with it a little bit to see how am I going to put these flowers. So again, I have this one. Now I did die cut it 3 times out of the same cardstock. All of these are cut 3 times so that I have a little bit more dimension without using foam tape. So I have to decide, do I really even want all of the flowers? I almost think I like it better without the flowers and just with my Beautiful Friend, honestly. Kind of do. I think I just kind of like, that's pretty. Actually, I think I just kind of like the background to speak for itself, so I'll just set that aside for another project for a different day, because now that I am seeing this, my Beautiful Friend, I think we can do something really pretty without using those flowers. So I have flowers for a different project. So let's just set that aside. Let's cut some foam tape here. And I do want to make sure that I have plenty because I don't want it sagging at all. So I'm just going to kind of poke here. And let's just add some pieces here. I know I could have cut it instead of ripped it, and I would have had a much neater presentation, but nobody sees the back anyway, right? So we'll just get these all set. That's still a little bit too wide. Just pre-pull that piece off because it's so small. Go. Alright, and we're going to adhere our background. So, you know, I wanted to make sure that I had everything I needed, but now that I just like that simplicity of that. We're not quite done. There is something else we'll add, but we are just going to add this piece right there. Make sure that it's straight, kind of on the bottom there. And then we're going to pull out some sequins and my pick. Now I have found lately that I am really loving this Gina K Connect glue. It has become my go-to glue, and in fact I'm using more liquid glue in cards than what I used to, but it just does a fabulous job with adhering things. It dries clear, so you don't have to worry about you know, detracting from your whatever you're making. You don't have to worry if it seeps out a little bit. It takes very, very little glue to do the job, and I just really am impressed with it. I know I feel like I'm a little bit slow to the game here with that glue because I think it's been out for a couple years, but I definitely have it in my shopping cart for the next time I place another order, as I feel like my tube might be getting a little bit empty. Now, I've never, ever, ever had this tube clog, and it's either getting empty or it has a clog. So let's just grab a pen. I feel like it's got a clog, probably because I was using it too much earlier and didn't put the lid on it. There we go. Just takes a teeny tiny piece. In fact, that's a little bit more than what I really needed. That's probably a lot more than what I needed, but again, it's going to dry clear, so it won't matter. So pretty. So simple to use, the glue. I think the glue that it reminds me the most of, and it's probably because of the fine tip, is the 3M glue. I used to use it years ago all the time. It was my go-to glue. But I just feel like this doesn't glump out as much as that glue did, and I just really like it. Okay, there we have it. I think we are done. Just a very simple card. I will probably put a panel on the inside, similar to the matted panel on here, just so that it's a little bit easier to write on. But other than that, I think we're done. So my first Slimline card, I really like the fact that I can use my Tim Holtz stencils, that even though they're just about an inch short, I can make them work. And I think it's beautiful. So thanks so much for stopping by today, and remember, take some time to enjoy the little things. Have a great day. Bye.